Fret against drum beats just hit different. Let's reconstruct 5 drum patterns from 5 of his biggest tracks to find out why they feel so addictive. Starting with Marea. This beat looks quite simple on paper, but it actually has a lot of depth. The BPM is at 123, and to get started, increase the swing knob to about 45%. Start with a simple kick drum on every beat, then put a clap on every second beat, and layer it with a snare as well. Now we have the backbone of the beat. Now let's add in an open hi-hat. It's gonna be offbeat, like so. And I'm gonna layer it with another one right here. This one is a bit different, more vinyl. And we are actually gonna extend this and repeat the same rhythm over here. This is still fairly simple. Let's add some more hi-hats. I'm using this short hi-hat, and we're gonna create some sort of a realistic rhythm. So it's gonna go like that, and same here. That already adds a lot of groove. But to make it more interesting, we're gonna go to the graph editor, and we're gonna play around with the volume of each hi-hat. And that's gonna make them sound a lot more natural. Just listen to the difference between the first half, where we adjusted the velocity, and the second half, where we didn't. So always play around with the velocity. Right now it sounds like this. Let's add a filler snare, which is this one, and we're gonna add it like this. And again, with the filler snare, you can also play with the velocity and also find pitch. So this second snare will be pitched up, almost making it sound like a different snare. And we can also add some rims, like this one. I pitched it down. Every time you want to adjust the sound of the drum, if you want it to be more obvious or more dull, try pitching it up or down. That will result in a different sound. So we're gonna add the rims like this, right here with the snare, and then 3 over here, also with the snare. We're gonna add one more rim, this one, which is a bit louder, and it will go at the very end. But the most important thing in this drum beat are the side kicks. So here are the side kicks, and we're gonna add them like this. Before the third kick, after the third kick, and then the same again over here. I'm actually using the same sound for the side kick as for the real kick, but to change it, again, go back to graph editor, and we're gonna adjust the pitch. So the side kicks will be lower in pitch, they will be lower in velocity, and you can also adjust the mod X, which will sort of increase the cutoff so they don't have as much high frequencies. So this is how the kick sounds with the side kicks. Just adds a lot of groove, so together it sounds like this. And one final touch that was in the original song that has to do with the drum beat is adding this snare roll as a little fill. There we go. Now let's listen to the whole drum beat with the song. And if you are wondering, for the samples, I'm using LANDR samples, where you can pretty much find samples for any genre that you are making. All of the samples that I'm using today are bundled into a collection, so you can find it in the link below. Now for a change of pace, let's take a look at another beat. This one is from Places to Be. This is a drum and bass beat, and it has 2 major components. Component 1 is the beat itself. And component 2 is the little drums in the background. which makes this a lot more unique. Let's reconstruct the short drums first. We are using normal samples, but we're gonna decrease the length almost all the way down. Here's the second one, then this hi-hat, and this snare for the intro. So the first one just goes like this. The second one is where the magic happens. Again, we have just one sample after another, but we're gonna adjust the pitch in the graph editor. So go to find pitch and increase the first hit, then the fourth one, and the last one. Now we sort of created a melody with the short hits. Also, I adjusted the panning, so one is to the left and one is to the right. Add the hi-hat. Again, panning it from left to right and adjusting the velocity of every second hit. And then we have the snare at the beginning with the envelope enabled, so we can have a long hit, but also a short one. So we have a short one here and then a long one. And that's the intro of the song. Now for the main drum beat, start with the kick, creating this rhythm. Add the snares on every second beat. And here I'm gonna add a pitched up version of the snare. So again, it hits a little bit different. So it's more like when you're playing natural drums, every snare hit is slightly different. You can hear that this one is a little higher. Then we are gonna add these short hi-hats. And again, adjusting the velocity, so every second hi-hat is a little bit different. We are also gonna add a ride. And last but not least, let's add a pre-shifted clap at the end here. If it's hard to line up, you can also go to piano roll and move it around here with the Alt key until it hits exactly at the right beat. Just like so. And that's it. Very simple drum beat, very snappy. But now let's pair it up with the second component, which is this one. And then we have this. Add the bass and the strings. Hello, I got places to be. Anyways, the next place to be is in the third drum beat. This one is from my favorite song of Fred again, Delilah, and it's a house beat, but it's way faster. A lot of little tricks to be learned from this one. So let's deconstruct it. Starting with the drum, we have a simple 4x4 beat with an extra drum at the end. And again, if we go to graph editor, this kick's velocity is lower. Then we can add the clap and the snare on every second beat. But to make this more interesting, let's also add the snare here and here. Again, details like these add a lot more groove to the whole thing. Once again, if you are adding a filler snare or a filler kick, lower the velocity of it. Now add the open hi-hat on every offbeat. But also add it before the third offbeat and before the fourth offbeat. Again, go to graph editor and lower the velocity of these filler open hi-hats. We're also gonna add one here and lower the velocity of them, and one here as well. And if you are not sure what the swing does, if we turn it off, it sounds like this. So now everything is right on beat, but if you increase the swing, it will move the position of these hi-hats slightly off beat, making them more groovy. Let's also add in the shakers on every offbeat. And we're gonna do that for an open hi-hat again with this one. which is panned to the right. We're just gonna layer it on top of the open hi-hat, which we already have. But on every fourth beat, we are actually gonna use a second open hi-hat, which is the same one, and it will also be panned to the right, but it will be a lot louder. So now it sounds like this. Now let's add the small shakers and small hi-hats. We are just gonna add them all the way like this, but this doesn't sound good. So going back to the graph editor, you can actually adjust the velocity, and a very natural pattern that will make this sound way more realistic is going low with the first one, a little bit higher with the second one, all the way with the third one, and then a little bit lower with the fourth one. And just repeat this throughout the drum beat. Now the shakers sound more realistic. Same goes for the short hi-hats. We are just gonna copy this, Ctrl C while it's selected, Ctrl V on the hi-hats. And that's exactly what we want. And one more thing we want to add is some rim shots or snares. So we are gonna add them like this. And again, in the graph editor, I adjusted the pitch as well. You don't really want to adjust it too much, because then it will be a completely different sound, but slight adjustments make it sound more natural. And once you have your drum beat, you can put it in the playlist and make a copy of it, which we're gonna click on this and make unique. And you can do a variation of the second repetition. And in this variation, all we're gonna do is add a second kick right at the start. And again, lower the velocity of it and remove this kick. And once our drum beat is in the playlist, we can actually add a few more things in the playlist directly. So I have pre-shifted clap. So now our drum beat sounds like this. And with the rest of the sounds, it's like this. We're gonna switch up the genre again into the Leave Me Alone drum beat, which is drum and bass. And this one is very simple, but there is still one thing that you can learn from it. So we have this drum beat. So let's reconstruct it. We have the kick like this. Then we have a snare. Then a clap. To add a bit of spark into the snare. And again, all of these sounds are from LANDR samples. You can grab them in the link below. As you can hear, there is quite a lot of variety. And then we have the hi-hats. The hi-hats are actually kind of unique. So we have this very short hi-hat. And again, if your hi-hat is too long, you can always shorten it by decreasing the length and also adjusting the fade out. Now this hi-hat, if we just put it in like this on every second step, sounds like this. But what we can do is again play around with the velocity. So in the graph editor, adjust the velocity like this and even adjust the fine pitch slightly at some point. And now this hi-hat creates a lot more groove. It's not just one hi-hat after another, but it moves around. So you make some parts of the hi-hat less obvious and some part of the hi-hat more obvious, which will reflect nicely in the whole rhythm of the song. But we also have a second part of the drum beat where we add the rides. And we are just going to create a simple 4x4 pattern. You can just right click it and choose fill each 4 steps. And now we have this. So then with the bass, it sounds like this. Leave me alone. Just leave me alone. And yeah, that's the drum beat from Leave Me Alone. Very simple, but still a few things that you can take away from it and use it in your own music. Last but not least, we have the drum beat from Turn On The Lights, which is kind of a UK garage type beat. So let's reconstruct it, starting with the kick. And again, in the velocity, the second kick is lower. So it's more like a filler kick instead of a proper kick. In UKG, instead of a snare, you can use a rim shot, and we are gonna add it on every second beat like so. We have this sound, and I've added some reverb on it, so it has a bit of echo. Now let's add the offbeat hi-hats, just like so. And we're gonna layer it with another offbeat hi-hat, like so. And it's nice to have two offbeat hi-hats, because then you can add some filler hi-hats, but only to one of them. So we are gonna add one here. And again, go to velocity and lower the second one. Now let's add the shakers. I'm using this sound. And we are going to use the same technique as before. Just put them on every step, then go to Graph Editor and use the same technique, putting the first one lower, then the second one slightly higher, third one is the highest, and then the fourth one is lower again. So just create that pattern, and it will make the shakers more natural, and they will have this breathing effect. And this is the drum beat. But in the beginning, we have a twist, which is the same drum beat, but instead of the actual kick, we are using more of a top kick, which will remove all the low frequencies, and we will have this light version of the drum beat. I'm also automating the reverb of the rim shot in the beginning to create this nice effect. Just amazing. I'm really impressed with Fred Again's drum beats, and I hope you could take away some good ideas from these that you can use in your own production. But that is it from me. Thank you for watching. If you want to check out LANDR samples, check the link in the description below, and you can grab all of the samples that I've used in there as well.